The Big Red Machine is here! Kiss stealing, woo, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun!
From the past.
I am a real American.
To the present. And the future.
I sentence you to deletion!
You are listening to Penn State's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus, Ryan Simpson, and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast. I'm your host, Jason Marcus, alongside me, Ryan Simpson and Matt Freiler, and we are a couple days away from Survivor Series. But first, Matt, how are you doing today?
Doing good, Jason, and it's been exciting lately. WWE really putting their foot to the gas these past 2 weeks and try to get fans pumped up for Survivor Series.
Yeah, I think it's been weird just because, they really has been so rushed. Like, as soon as Crown Jewel was over, they were like, all right, 2 weeks, let's build this. And it's supposed to be one of the biggest pay-per-views. But before we get too far into it, I got to say hi to Ryan Simpson. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jason. As Matt said, we were talking a little bit before the show, and WWE is really trying to put Crown Jewel in the past and get everybody's focus on Survivor Series, and there's a lot to talk about leading up to this.
There is a lot to talk about. Eyes are firmly on Survivor Series this Sunday. So the first thing that we should really talk about here, before we give our official match predictions here, the headline of Survivor Series was supposed to be a champion versus champions match between Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is on the heel run and just overall best run of her career, I'd say right now. She's probably that's certainly the most over woman. I would say possibly the most over superstar on the entire roster right now. She's that good. But unfortunately, she gets hurt on Monday Night Raw. In the main event of Raw, they were staging an invasion angle in which the members of the SmackDown's Women's Survivor Series team came into a Raw, beat up the Raw women. But during the middle of the scuffle, Becky Lynch attacks Nia Jax. And, Nia Jax hits her back. You can't say she didn't defend herself, but here's the issue. Nia Jax hits Becky Lynch in the face and shatters her face and gives her a concussion. And down goes the main event of a Big Four pay-per-view. Matt, I need to go to you. What was your reaction to this, and what do you think is the long-term effects of this injury?
In my eyes, it's a problem, but I don't think the WWE is really seeing it as such, considering Nia Jax has been all over my Instagram feed today promoting Total Divas' new season coming out. She went on Twitter. They assume allowed her to tweet a picture of her fist, also nicked up, assuming from either Becky's tooth or a part of her face, saying, hey, we don't deliver mail. Accidents happen. To me, I don't understand this at all. This is not the first time Nia Jax has injured somebody. She was not on NXT long enough because there is something wrong here where she clearly doesn't have a grasp of how big she really is in the ring.
Doesn't know her own strength.
Right. And she, Becky Lynch is there wailing punches at her that are basically bouncing right off her. Like, Nia has got to realize that right fist from her is going to knock somebody out of a main event. And she clearly doesn't yet because it's happened many times now. And it's almost like Brock Lesnar, where he doesn't understand his own strength sometimes, or he doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
But I know Nia Jax cares. I'm not knocking her character. I just think she needs to learn a little bit more. We need to take a step back from her and say, okay, what is the problem here? Because arguably the biggest match of women's wrestling history is now postponed because of this to happen. So I don't know. I'm just not happy with how it happened. I was so excited to see Becky and Ronda.
I think honestly, while it's disappointing now, somewhere down the line, these two are going to meet again, and I think it's going to be bigger than it was supposed to be for Survivor Series. So I think this might actually be a blessing in disguise, because there's also now more depth to this story, whereas before it was just we're throwing these two together because we feel like we have to. But now there's an actual reason to want to see these two fight. So I think actually, while it's disappointing, I think it'll actually work out in the long run. But Ryan, I want to go to you. I want to get your reaction over this, because a lot of people, like Matt, are kind of calling for Nia Jax to maybe not necessarily lose her job, but at least be demoted back down to NXT in the Performance Center. But you look at a similar situation a couple weeks ago in which Brie Bella actually knocks Liv Morgan out in the middle of the ring. Obviously, Brie Bella got a lot of pushback, a lot of hate, mostly from the fans on Twitter for it. But how do you feel like the two situations are different? How are they similar? What's just been your overall reaction to both of these events together?
Well, going kind of what off Matt said, I think Nia does need some time back in the Performance Center. I think after Survivor Series, she should take some time to go back down to Florida and just work on some general things. Once again, not knocking her as a person or as her character. She just does not know her own strengths sometimes, and at this point, she has hurt Ember Moon, she has hurt Becky, and there's somebody else.
Alexa Bliss.
And Alexa, too. There's just not enough wiggle room in this sport to have these happen in such a consistent basis. I think the best plan for her would just go, maybe come back for the Women's Rumble. That would be a good little return. It'll be 2 months of her practicing again. Also, she was injured, so there might still be some ring rust on her mechanics and that kind of stuff that people aren't taking into effect because it's the emotion of, man, we're not getting this match now. To counter your point with maybe this is a blessing in disguise, I don't think so at all, because I think the Ronda-Becky match would have led to the Ronda-Charlotte match, like we've alluded to for a couple months now.
Right.
So I think we're kind of switching things up, and I don't necessarily think that Vince is too happy about it, because he knows that the money match is Charlotte versus Ronda, and now he has to push it earlier than he probably anticipated.
He just gave up his WrestleMania main event for Survivor Series, which, I mean, then you can make the argument, though, is now the WrestleMania event Becky Ronda.
I don't know. I posed it to you guys. Maybe it's a triple threat between Becky, Ronda, and Charlotte. I don't think that holds as much weight.
That requires someone switching brands, though.
Exactly. And to answer your question about the Brie Bella situation, I think at this point, as much as we all would hate to admit it, I think Brie Bella is sadly one of those untouchable people in WWE.
Oh, yeah.
She is far too marketable with Total Divas. She is far too marketable doing Make-A-Wish and stuff like that. I think the pushback for Nia, even though she's related to The Rock, whip-de-doo, and she's this huge unstoppable force, and like we haven't seen a character like her since possibly China. Would that be fair to say, guys?
Like in a sense, I guess.
In a sense.
But I feel like Beth Phoenix was more like China than Nia Jax is.
I'll give you that.
But as far as like an intimidating looking woman who's like, she's not there to be pretty, she's there to look like she can beat you up.
Exactly, and that's kind of why I picked China, but I think Nia's pushback and her overall heat is going to be far, far harder and far more drastic than it would be for Brie Bella in the Liv Morgan incident.
So here's my thing, though. I don't think just because of the way things are right now that you can put Nia Jax back in the Performance Center without it causing more problems than it fixes. Because there's so many eyes on NXT and everyone who's there, like, if you put Nia Jax there, like, it's not like it was 20 years ago, they did the same thing with the Big Show. You know, he went back to OVW for like a year or so and then came back to the main roster and everyone was like, oh, I'm glad to have you back. But the difference is, there wasn't a WWE network back then that was streaming all the OVW. Like, how do you put Nia Jax? Because no matter how you phrase it, it's going to look like a demotion. And so I don't know. I feel like it would just completely destroy any momentum that she could potentially have. Because how do you come back to the main roster after being demoted and then because everyone's going to use that against you? And it's like, how do you come back from that?
Think about it, though. She's one more injury away from being released.
I don't know about that.
I think she's one more serious injury. I mean, not a lot of people are thinking about this because Becky's so tough. This is a fractured face and a severe concussion. Like, this isn't like some stubbed toe or broken nail. Like, she can't wrestle.
Right.
And she wants to. Becky wants to, but there's no chance that they're going to let her wrestle with a concussion. Now, looking at the big picture of this, if you're Vince right now, you're sweating because not only this Roman Reigns thing happened completely unexpectedly, now your hottest woman is out of the game, and she can't wrestle.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you have all these XFL teams that you got to release soon because they announced it for this fall. So he's got a lot going on right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure he has a lot of people to delegate all that work to. But
So just to quickly wrap up this whole storyline here, it was on SmackDown after it was announced that Becky Lynch wasn't going to be competing in Survivor Series. She was then just to kind of handpick someone else from SmackDown to face Ronda Rousey, even though they're not the champion. It's no longer champion versus champions match. She ends up picking Charlotte Flair, which I think we all agree is the right decision. There's nowhere else. Maybe Asuka, actually.
I disagree.
Okay, give me who would you have rather seen take on Ronda Rousey at Survivor Series?
Asuka. I think you have to put Asuka here just because you don't need Charlotte and Ronda for Survivor Series to save it. It's not going to save it necessarily.
Right.
I think that there's more story to build up, and if you just need a one-off to just plug in, give Asuka a shot. And see how she can work with Ronda. I mean, we haven't seen it yet. We were supposed to. Like, when Ronda came in the company, that was everybody's thought. It was supposed to be Ronda and Asuka. I think that this is a chance, but again, they overlook her. And she's just slipping into to completely oblivion. Like, her character's, like, meaningless.
All right, Simpson, you're chomping at the bit. Go for it. What do you got to say?
Idea time.
Okay, idea time.
So we have Alexa, who's not cleared.
We really need a button for that.
Yeah, but she's still in the ring doing promos and stuff. Do we have Charlotte and Ronda going on, and we get a no contest because Becky comes out and attacks Ronda?
No, I don't think they're going to let her get physical at all.
I think something would have... Okay, so I like the idea, but I think something would have happened last night where they would have either taken the belt off of Becky or something would have happened with physical contact. But they're showing as of last night that, like, if they're not playing in any storyline with any involvement of physical contact with her, that she's not cleared and they're trying to protect her, I think.
Yeah, and anything else left on this topic, guys, before we move on to the big story with the WWE Championship?
Yeah, I think the other note is about Alexa Bliss. Like, she's out there giving her Survivor Series team. There's a brawl that goes on, and if you were watching Raw, she immediately gets out of the ring.
Well, she's supposed to be heel.
I understand that, but with how the rest of that event played out, I would be scared to death if I was her, because you never know in that situation with that many superstars in the ring what's going to happen.
But isn't that supporting the fact that she should have just gotten out of the ring?
No, I'm saying they shouldn't have even put her in the ring.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she should have been far out of that ring before that segment even started with the actual brawl itself.
But I think everyone in the back knows that you can't touch Alexa, so why would anyone going to try?
I think Nia knew that she should have not broken Becky's face.
Oh, no, I disagree.
What I'm saying is, like, accidents can happen. Yes, that's the result of the Becky thing. But also putting Alexa, who is your top woman on Raw other than Ronda, who shows up occasionally, in that situation where now with the Roman injury, now the Becky injury, and I was just thinking back to when you were saying about Vince sweating, Matt, is we're slowly approaching a WrestleMania that's injury-plagued like we were a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Who knows if Becky's going to be healthy? Who knows if Alexa's going to be able to stay healthy?
Yeah.
But
if they lose Ronda Rousey, WrestleMania's in big trouble.
Absolutely. But just to finish up the Alexa point, I think putting her in that situation with how much turmoil was going on around the rest of the company, very, very risky, and just Vince needs to watch himself in the next coming months, just in case anything were to happen.
And he wasn't backstage at SmackDown.
No.
Last night. And
we don't know why that
there's
is.
been many times. We can't speculate, but it's definitely interesting for him right now. There's being curveballs thrown at him left and right.
Yeah.
And creative, which we'll go into now, knocked it out of the park last night.
Yeah, so speaking of curveballs here, Matt, the main event of Friday, I can always call Friday Night SmackDown.
Almost, next October.
It's not anymore. It will be soon.
Yeah.
Last night on SmackDown Live, we saw the main event between AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship, and the entire episode was just completely confusing to me because why is AJ defending the title that he just defended against the same guy? He beat him clean. Like, there's really no reason to have this match. Daniel Bryan was already booked to become part of the Survivor Series match. But for whatever reason, they have the main event. It's Styles and Bryan for the title, which is great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, anytime Styles and Bryan are wrestling, especially for the title, like, I'm in. However, it ends in incredible fashion. Matt, why don't you go ahead and take this one? Tell the viewers what happened in the main event of SmackDown Live.
Complete and total swerve. I mean, I was shocked. And you're not supposed to be shocked on a Tuesday night. I can't remember the last time I was shocked on a Tuesday night. Like they never pull any. It's usually like heel versus face tag team.
I was actually thinking to myself as this was going on, I was like, man, when was the last time we went on to Marking Out and was like, SmackDown was must-see television?
Seriously. And, they pulled it off. They really did. And my thought of it is this match happened 2 weeks ago on SmackDown. Obviously, AJ Styles is the character who likes to defend his title and, put his money where his mouth is, and he's always having these open challenges. So I get that he wants to put his title on the line on a Tuesday night. But I think this was supposed to happen at Crown Jewel. Now, Daniel Bryan obviously didn't want to go because of the fallout with what happened in Saudi Arabia.
So if this was supposed to happen at Crown Jewel, why didn't it happen 2 weeks ago?
I don't think they wanted to do it on a Tuesday night, but I think they were forced to because it was scheduled to happen, but it could not happen because Daniel Bryan has enough power to refuse to go to that pay-per-view because of the events that occurred. Now, when you really look at it,
what happened, Matt? What's the big story that happened at the end of
the heel turn?
Yeah.
So, this is just so confusing to me. I don't understand why you do it now. I thought the plan was to have AJ break CM Punk's record, which I guess they really don't care about.
It's the whole timing thing is the biggest thing I'm confused about, but go on.
Yeah, and what I really don't get is now what is AJ Styles, what is his role in Survivor Series?
So for those of you who didn't watch SmackDown, Daniel Bryan low blows AJ Styles as the referee's injured, which obviously for most fans was the beginning of
that was the heel turn.
What are we watching here? Yeah. Because Daniel Bryan has been the biggest babyface for 5 years in this company, whether he was wrestling or not. He was there and he was the biggest babyface. And for no reason at all, on a random Tuesday night, Daniel Bryan turns heel over AJ Styles, low blows him, hits him with a running knee, and wins the WWE Championship on a random go-home episode of SmackDown. And it was just it was the craziest regular season show or regular weekly show that I've seen in a long time. It's been a while since I've been that surprised. Ryan, I got to go to you. What was your reaction to not only the Daniel Bryan heel turn, but why, if you're going to do this and then put the title on, why now? Why less than a week before your biggest show of the year, one of them?
Well, I have the explanation of why Daniel Bryan turned heel.
Okay.
The Seahawks lost. He just couldn't take it anymore.
Right? You know what? And that makes sense. That's been Marking Out, guys.
but actually, I think the reason for the heel turn is to divert eyes away from Becky. It gives them another big potential heel. It's questionable. People are going to want to tune in to see what's happening with Daniel Bryan now. It also gives them another huge heel to take Becky's place on SmackDown because, as we have talked about before, Joe is in limbo. They don't really have another big heel on SmackDown other than Randy Orton, but we're sick and tired of seeing Randy Orton. It's the same guy that we all know and love doing something different, very similarly to Dean Ambrose.
Yeah.
It parallels it somewhat.
I agree.
There's
definitely parallels.
Him turning on somebody that is well-respected, Dean and Seth, Daniel Bryan and AJ, to get something that he wants, be the WWE title, and we all have to tune in to see what's going to happen next. My reaction to the heel turn itself was probably similar to you guys. My jaw dropped. I didn't know what to think.
It was just so random because it's 5 days away from Survivor Series.
And I think, once again, this is Vince sweating a little bit, and he's going to keep sweating until Survivor Series because now Daniel Bryan, who has a long list of neck injuries, is going to have to wrestle Brock Lesnar.
Right.
Which I am scared to death to watch this match for the sake of Daniel Bryan's health.
Yeah.
I am very, very scared to watch this match. I will definitely be cringing.
You thought Brock was reckless before? He doesn't want to be here anymore.
I mean, if you think back to last Survivor Series, AJ had Brock in the calf crusher. Brock grabbed AJ by his hair and started slamming his head off the mat. If you do that with Daniel Bryan, he might
something
just
bad will
lose.
Happen.
He might just be paralyzed.
Yeah.
I'm so worked up about it, I can't even talk right now.
Yeah.
But the overall timing, I think, is to divert eyes away from the Becky situation. And it gets eyes back on the WWE title just in case there are the casual fans that don't understand AJ Styles' character and they want to see somebody else hold the belt.
Yeah, and a couple of things before we wrap this up because we got to get to our predictions here. But why does AJ hurt? Is this the reason you do this? Because now AJ Styles doesn't have a match on Survivor Series. He goes from being in the main event to not on the card at all. And for all we know, he's completely healthy. Do you think Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar was a plan all along, Matt? Or what do you think changed for them to make this decision here?
I think it's one of two things. One actually kind of makes sense. The other one's a complete shot in the dark, but it's a possibility.
It's all right. That's wrestling. Yeah, that's wrestling.
The first one is that maybe they're protecting AJ from a squash because I think this is going to be a squash.
Yeah, and Brock wins, obviously.
If you have Brock come out and dominate Braun Strowman the way he did at Crown Jewel, how is AJ Styles or Daniel Bryan ever going to match up?
Right.
So either they're protecting their top guy from a squash or AJ Styles failed a wellness test.
Ooh, interesting.
Because, I mean, this is so random, and it's hard to explain.
It really is hard to explain. And then the other thing is you get the big heel turn from Daniel Bryan, and now you're going to put him in the main event against the other biggest heel in the company.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why would you turn him heel if you're expecting a massive babyface reaction for whoever's facing Brock? It just doesn't make sense to me.
And Jeff Hardy is the replacement for Daniel Bryan on their Survivor Series team, so it's not like they came to AJ and said, okay, you're at least going to be on the card. He's not going to wrestle.
Yeah, as far as we know, he's not wrestling.
Right, unless they work him into this storyline with Brock and Bryan somehow. But
it's a champion. It's not a title match. It's not even like for anything.
So
it's
if he's not on this card, there's got to be something.
There must be. There's something we don't know.
And it will surface soon enough. But I mean, I don't want to ever speculate that AJ Styles.
But I mean, the wellness test makes a lot of sense. Not that to say that there's any reason for me to believe that he's failed one in the past or would have.
Yeah.
But I mean, it brings some logic to the situation. I don't know.
It's
Ryan,
just a shot in the dark.
You have anything else on this?
I mean, only to support Matt's theory of it being a possible wellness test violation. He was also taken off Mixed Match Challenge with Charlotte for Jeff Hardy. So he has been completely stripped from all products until our further notice, until we tune in to Survivor Series or possibly SmackDown a week from now.
How are people going to buy the video game if the cover superstar is not there?
I don't know. But
there's just so many curveballs being thrown.
Yeah.
I think Survivor Series now is going to be very, very interesting in the terms of what the fans are going to do. Because we also have Shinsuke and Seth Rollins having a match. I hope that Dean is somehow involved there because we need Dean to start messing with Seth.
Dean doesn't have a match for Survivor Series.
Dean doesn't have a match either. So we really need him to start messing with Seth in the ring so we continue the storyline. But I'm expecting the fans to be very, very rowdy on Sunday in terms of Brock being there, in terms of Charlotte and Ronda going on and not Becky, in terms of Shinsuke and Rollins. Hopefully Dean comes out, and then just the overall Survivor Series match, like the overall Raw versus SmackDown match, because in years past, it's been terrible. I mean, the last good one that I could really say was probably when Sting debuted. Like, there have been good ones, but not ones where I've gone, oh my gosh, I love Survivor Series matches so much. I love Raw versus SmackDown.
Yeah, no, I think it's not even a question. Survivor Series is definitely the
weakest four.
Yeah, it's the weakest of the four. They don't really care about it. It's just something that they feel obligated to do every year now. But Matt, what do you have before we go to a break?
I'm just kind of a little excited for that, and we'll get to it. The traditional tag team match this year, because I think there's so much talent that we don't get to see on Monday and Tuesdays because they just get buried in the card. And you guys know me, huge Chad Gable and Bobby Roode team captains of Raw, and I think that this is setting up now where these guys are going to get really close. They're going to run through the tag division, and they're going to turn on each other, and I'm hyped for it.
All right, well, you stay tuned here. We're going to take another break, but when we come back, we're going to give our official predictions for all the matches at Survivor Series. You're listening to Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast, and we will be right back.
Now, back to Com Radio's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast. We have a big weekend of professional wrestling this week. Saturday night, we have Takeover War Games. Sunday night, we have Survivor Series. We are now going to give our official predictions for both shows, and we are going to start with Takeover War Games. Of course, this is the second year in a row that NXT has brought back the infamous stipulation match in which teams are locked inside of a two-ringed cage where single fall to win it. So the first match we're going to talk about here is the NXT Women's Championship match between Kairi Sane versus the champion Shayna Baszler. 2 out of 3 falls. These women faced off in the Mae Young Classic finals, and then 2 other times, one on NXT TakeOver and one on the Australian Evolution on an Evolution. But we have the 2 out of 3 falls match here. Matt, I'm going to go to you. Who picks up the win?
I think Kairi Sane here because I think Shayna Baszler is getting close to a main roster spot. So, I mean, if you're going to set up a potential 4 horsewomen of MMA versus 4 horsewomen of WWE, which is my guess for WrestleMania, then you're going to have to get Baszler on the main roster pretty quick and wait for the other 2 women to get healthy.
What about you, Simpson? Sane or Baszler here?
I'm taking Sane as well. I think the time is now for Sane to kind of take the belt and run with it for a little bit. She's had the back and forth feud, which I enjoy. I enjoy a good kind of belt tossing around feud as long as it doesn't last too long, but I think it has to be Sane here.
I'm going with Shayna Baszler just because they put the title on her, not too long ago. I don't feel like I feel like if you're going to put the title on someone, it's because they have plans for them. So I think he's still a little bit longer. But up next, we have a grudge match between Johnny Gargano versus Aleister Black. My personally most exciting match on the card for me. Of course, the story here is Aleister Black was attacked in a parking lot by a mystery assailant.
Love it.
And that mystery assailant turned out to be none other than Johnny Wrestling. And so now they have the grudge match here. Matt, who gets the win?
I'm going with Johnny Wrestling here because I do think that, again, Aleister Black is probably another consideration for main roster, maybe even in the Royal Rumble. You always see these guys from NXT make their Royal Rumble entrance. I think he'd probably be a good one. So I think Johnny Wrestling here, in a great match, could steal the show.
What about you, Ryan?
I'm going to take Aleister for the same reason. I think Aleister still wants his rematch against Ciampa, so I think he'll win here, beat Johnny Wrestling, and then Johnny Wrestling will get caught up during the Rumble. I think Aleister still has some unfinished business in NXT, and maybe Aleister will be like a night after Mania guy.
This is a tough one to call for me because I feel like Aleister Black is the most likely one to get called up to the main roster just because he's already held the title. There's really not too much more he's got to do in NXT. They turned Johnny Gargano heel, so it seems like they definitely have some creative plans for him in the works here. But if I have to put, I think either way, the finish of this match is screwy. I don't think this is clean. But if I had to put a name on it, they both desperately need a win, but I'm going to go with Aleister Black just because I think Johnny Gargano does some of his best work when he's on the losing end, even if he's playing the heel here. And I think Black desperately needs a big win since we haven't seen him on his television for so long. And up next, we have the NXT Championship match between Tommaso Ciampa and the Velveteen Dream. Matt, who you got?
Velveteen Dream. I mean, I really think he's going to pull it off here because we've seen so many shocking things lately.
Yeah.
And this would be a really shocking thing.
This would.
And who The Rock himself said Velveteen Dream is the guy. Like, he is a prodigy. Like, this guy is going to look very good. Now, there's a lot of people saying, okay, Ciampa's going to retain, but Dream's going to look very good along the way. I think Dream picks the win up here. I do. I have faith in him.
What about you, Ryan?
My heart says Velveteen. My brain says Ciampa. I'm going to take Ciampa here just because I think we're going to get one more Ciampa and Gargano match possibly somewhere in the future, barring that Aleister loses and that feud kind of gets stirred up one more time. But I think Ciampa's going to retain here. I think Velveteen's going to get really, really close. I think he's going to hit him with all kinds of finishers, and he's just going to have that look of, like, what am I doing? Like, I can't beat this guy. I can't beat this guy. Similar to Johnny Wrestling, I think Velveteen is a great guy and puts on great work when he's in the losing end of matches.
I'm going with Tommaso Ciampa here. Velveteen Dream, I agree with Ryan, is going to take him to his limits, look like he's going to win the title. But actually, I think Ciampa's going to win here. I think they're going to set up like a potentially triple threat match between Gargano, Ciampa, and Black down the road. And I think if any one NXT superstar is going to get called up first, it's Velveteen Dream. And then lastly,
Titus worldwide. Worldwide.
I hope not. And then lastly, the main event of NXT Takeover War Games is, of course, the War Games match. On one side, we have the team of the Undisputed Era, Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, and Bobby Fish versus the makeshift team of Pete Dunne, the NXT United Kingdom champion, the NXT North American champion, Ricochet, and the War Raiders. Should be a fun and violent match for all wrestling fans to enjoy, but who gets the win, Matt?
I'm going to go Undisputed Era here. I think we'll be unanimous. But I think one of the most interesting things in this match is how much time they're giving it. They dropped Matt Riddle against Cassius Ohno for this.
Yeah.
I mean, that was supposed to be on this card. And they said
it still might be like a kickoff match.
Maybe, but I think they're going to leave at least 40 minutes for this. I mean, I think it went like 36 minutes last year, and it was insane. I think Triple H really wants to let a lot of time for these 8 guys to work. And I think it'll be a great match for NXT. And I love this War Games idea. They should just keep running with it.
Oh, they will. Ryan?
Undisputed Era 2-0 in War Games matches. They're just too good. And as Matt alluded to, they are going to have so much time. And the amount of talent that is in the ring, this might be match of the year.
It's very possible here.
I mean, last year was incredible with having 3 teams. I think condensing it to 2 teams is going to have just so much more room in the ring and so many different spots that we thought we would never see again because of the sheer talent and the athleticism in the ring, but going Undisputed Era.
You will see a spot here from Ricochet that's going to blow everyone.
I was literally just about to say, I can't wait to see Ricochet on a cage.
Yeah.
Does it start the match like it did the North American ladder match?
No.
Does Ricochet start with a huge spot?
He might. I don't know. You never predict Ricochet. That's what makes him great.
True.
I'm going to go with Undisputed Era here. I think they're being booked like the modern-day Four Horsemen, and the modern-day Four Horsemen were the winners of all the War Games. So I'm going Undisputed Era here. But real quickly, we got to give our predictions for Survivor Series, and we're going to start with the Tag Team Survivor Series elimination match. On one side, we have the Raw team, captained by Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, with the Ascension, Lucha House Party, the B Team, and the Revival, versus the SmackDown side, which is captained by the Usos, who have the New Day, the Good Brothers, Sanity, and the Colognes. No real rhyme or reason here, but Matt, who do you think wins?
The Colognes are back, but they're not going to win.
They're going to be the first ones out. Let's
Ready,
be real.
willing, glorious, and Gable all the way. Love it. Love the Raw tag team.
What about you, Ryan? Raw or SmackDown?
I think I'm going to take Raw here just because SmackDown is kind of a cluster, and I think maybe Usos and New Day are going to get into it again, just like old times, and they're just not going to be able to coexist.
I'm taking SmackDown here. The two biggest names in the entire match are both the Usos and the New Day, both on the one side. Everyone else on the Raw side is a complete jobber. They're not winning this. Tag Team Championship match, the AOP from the Raw side versus the SmackDown side, which is the Bar, with the Big Show. Don't forget the Big Show on the outside for whatever reason. Who wins this, Ryan?
I hope the Authors of Pain break the Bar, destroy the Bar. I hope they destroy Big Show too, just because that'll solidify them as true monsters on the main roster who haven't watched NXT before. I hope this match is like under 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm very not interested in this match, but Matt, who do you got?
Can the Big Show please turn on the bar already?
Yeah.
I don't
been
care
10
who wins. I just want to
minutes.
see that, yeah.
No, I'm taking AOP on this one, and I think it should be in dominating fashion here, but they definitely need to win a lot more. Raw Intercontinental Champion Seth Rollins versus United States Champion Shinsuke Nakamura should be arguably match of the night if it all goes well. Shinsuke desperately needs a big win, but Seth Rollins is the most over male on the roster. So who you got, Ryan?
I have Shinsuke winning because, as I alluded, I think Dean gets in interference here somewhere. I hope he gets interference in. If there's no interference, I think Rollins wins clean because Shinsuke hasn't had a match on a main card in what seems like an eternity. So I think there's some stipulation, but hopefully it's a good match, like you said.
What do you think, Matt? Rollins or Nakamura?
Yeah, Ambrose didn't come to the World Cup and mess with Seth, so here's a spot, and Shinsuke wins. Heel tactics. Dean Ambrose will come out and do something crazy, and who will screw Seth out of this.
Once again, I disagree. I'm going Seth Rollins here. Listen, if I have to put my money on who the WWE is going to put over, Seth Rollins or Shinsuke Nakamura, if recent history has taught me anything, it's never Nakamura. Rollins is going to get the win. Shinsuke should get the win, just he needs it more, but they love Rollins too much. It's not going to happen. He's going to win it. SmackDown the Women's Survivor Series elimination match. On the Raw side, we have Natalya, Mickie James, Nia Jax, Tamina Snuka, and Ruby Riott versus the SmackDown side of Carmella, Naomi, Asuka, Sonya Deville, and a mystery guest who we don't know yet. So this is a two-parter. Ryan, I'm going to go with you. Who is the missing person from the SmackDown side, and who wins the match?
I think it's going to be SmackDown winning because, as you alluded to, the tag team side for Raw, it's a bunch of jobbers. And that's kind of how I feel about the Raw side for the women here. I think SmackDown's going to win. Hopefully Asuka plays some kind of big part in this to get her momentum going again. As for the mystery opponent, I'd be cool with a call-up or a return, honestly. I think having a call-up from NXT the night before would be kind of nice. Kind of put them right in the spotlight. Maybe have them be the last woman standing in the match. Or have a return. Maybe, we've seen Trish and Lita come back, so maybe we get another return spot here. But I think SmackDown's taking it.
What about you, Matt? Who's the mystery person? Who wins?
I don't know who the mystery person is. I'm not even going to guess on it, but I think SmackDown wins this, gets revenge on Nia.
Real quick, I think the mystery person is going to be Nikki Cross. She just made her debut on SmackDown, and I'm going to have SmackDown win it just because I don't think anyone on Raw is worthy of it. Men's Survivor Series elimination match: Braun Strowman, Dolph Ziggler, Drew McIntyre, Finn Balor, and Bobby Lashley for Raw versus The Miz, Shane McMahon, Samoa Joe, Rey Mysterio, and Jeff Hardy for SmackDown. Matt, who you got and why?
Team Raw, yet again. They won last year. I think they'll continue to win here again, especially now that Daniel Bryan's not on Team SmackDown.
Going to be Raw. Braun's going to destroy everybody. I can't wait. get these hands.
I am also going with Raw on this one here, just because I think all the bigger stars are on that side. Women's championship match, women's champions match. Ronda Rousey for Raw versus the non-SmackDown women's champion Charlotte Flair. This is supposed to have been the WrestleMania main event, but it's now here at Survivor Series. Who gets the win?
Ronda. She's just too strong right now.
Definitely going to be Ronda because this has to continue, and Charlotte's going to have to get her revenge, so I'm going Ronda here. Charlotte's
going to be in the main event no matter what she does. Ronda Rousey desperately needs to continue her momentum. Ronda Rousey's going to get the big win here in the main event, I'll add, of Survivor Series. And lastly, what's being billed as the main event, it is the Universal Champion Brock Lesnar versus the new WWE Champion Daniel Bryan. Ryan, I'm going to go to you. Who wins?
Brock Lesnar, and bold prediction, matches under 3 minutes.
Under 2 minutes. Brock Lesnar in an absolute squash. Couple F5s, it's over.
I'm also going Brock Lesnar here, but I think it's going to be longer than you guys think it is. I think Daniel Bryan's going to give him a good fight. How the match ends, I don't know, because I think it hurts Daniel Bryan way too much to just have him lose in dominating fashion to Brock Lesnar after this big heel turn. It just completely kills any kind of momentum or anything he has. So those are all official predictions for Survivor Series and NXT TakeOver. We will be back in 2 weeks after we come home for Thanksgiving break. Thank you guys so much for listening. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.